Hi everybody, it's great to be here. I'm going to be taking you through what's new with Red Giant. This just got released recently. I'm going to go through some of the new features inside of Davinci Resolve with their new lens flare effects, not to mention being able to use Maxon Studio inside of After Effects. How many of you guys in the audience are currently using Red Giant tools? You got a few of them? Okay, great. So before I begin and start to demo in both Resolve and After Effects, I wanted to give you guys a tour of what's new through a video. We'll take a look and then we'll recap right after.
Red Giant's latest update brings even more creative power to your toolkit. We're introducing real lens flares and optical glow for Davinci Resolve editors. With real lens flares, you get a true-to-life simulation of light interacting with real-world lenses. Choose from a vast library of presets inspired by iconic films, or craft your own custom look. And with optical glow, you have full control over highlights, radiance, and tint, perfect for making neon signs, space swords, and bright accents shine in beautifully GPU-accelerated detail. These effects now join Red Giant's extensive lineup of solutions for Resolve editors, making it easier than ever to achieve high-end color correction, retro looks, and stunning visual effects, all with a streamlined, reorganized workflow to keep you moving fast. Maxon Studio is the ultimate motion graphics solution for After Effects users who need speed, flexibility, and efficiency. It transforms complex AE projects into lightweight, shareable capsules, eliminating bloated file sizes and slow workflows. Whether you're creating content for social media, broadcast, or high-end production, Maxon Studio gives you full creative control while ensuring your designs adapt to any resolution. Maxon Studio just got a massive boost. We're excited to introduce 100 brand new capsules, expertly crafted by motion designer Andy Needham. These customizable assets are designed to save time, enhance creativity, and streamline your workflow in After Effects. No need to start from scratch. Just drag, drop, and customize. Whether you're working on social media content, broadcast graphics, or high-end motion design, these capsules help you focus on storytelling while keeping your projects visually stunning. We're excited to share a sneak peek of the Create page coming soon. With this upcoming release, Maxon Studio users can create and share their own templates. We'll be delivering the most powerful and flexible template engine ever built for After Effects. Whether you're a content creator, motion designer, or part of a fast-paced production team, Maxon Studio redefines how you create, share, and deliver motion graphics. Maxon Studio revolutionizes motion design by transforming complex After Effects projects into lightweight, shareable capsules, boosting speed, efficiency, and creative flexibility. With seamless support for Red Giant plugins, After Effects tools, and third-party plugins, plus a powerful Create page for organizing, filtering, and managing your capsules, Maxon Studio keeps your workflow smooth and streamlined. Say hello to a smarter, faster way to create.
Okay, so there we have a little bit of an overview of what's new and came out last week. And I just wanted to give you what we're going to be looking at in a bit more detail in this presentation, so you have an understanding of what's possible for both your motion graphics and visual effects workflows. So that includes a look at real lens flares in Resolve and how you're able to use that in both the edit page, the color page, and the fusion page in order to get some VFX and stunning lens flares in your scene. We'll look at how we can use Resolve and its AI tools and masking in order to have our lens flare tracked to our environment. We'll also look at how these real lens flares can interact with the footage underneath. So if you toggle on a button, it will allow you to see your screen and it will flicker and move with you. Next, we'll look at saving those presets, and of course, a tour of Maxon Studio, where we'll see that studio preset load into After Effects and then go and play around with some templates that were just recently created for this release. So real lens flares, one thing that makes it very special is it's based off of simulated optical models and ray traced light, making it very believable for your compositions and your projects. We can take advantage of this inside of Resolve, which is what it just got added to. So I'm right now in the edit page of Resolve, and I'd like to add a lens flare to the top of my scene. In order to do this, I'll just head over to my filters here, my OFX filters. I'll do a search for real lens, and we can see that that's available inside the RG VFX category. The minute that I skim over that effect, you may notice a preview happening within the viewer. So I'm going to grab that effect, place it onto my clip, and one thing I like to do is interact with it right here in the viewer. In order to toggle on an overlay, on the bottom left-hand corner, I'll click here and make sure to grab the Open Effects overlay. By clicking this on, I now have access, we'll see here in a second, with the effect for an on-screen control. Let me toggle this on here with the position, where I can manipulate the lens flare, here we go, across the viewer. And you may notice that its light changes as it approaches the edges of the frame, not to mention various objects in our scene. If we take a look here at the inspector into our effects tab, we have a number of basic controls for you to manipulate this one lens. So I can adjust the color temperature, maybe to suit the scene a bit more, play with the size and the brightness, and also a number of flare properties here at the bottom. Now, if you're adding a lot of lens flares or have a lot of effects, one thing to speed up your workflow is to play with this quality control at the bottom. You can set it to fast as you work, and then up the standard based on the type of media you are working with. I'll keep this at fast for now and then toggle this back to production. And while there's basic controls here in the inspector, one of the coolest things is what happens when we open up the designer. So let's head into the designer, which is a space for us to work with the lens flare. I'll click on Open Designer. We enter into a new interface, and I just want to show you on the left-hand side, what you can see is a ton of lens flare presets available for you that you can change up. This one here, made of different components and settings and colors. If I click on one of these, and then just use my arrow keys, I can move between some of these lens flares. And as they update, I'm getting a preview right there in the center of the screen. Even better, I could look at the lens flare without the image behind it by toggling that off. And if I wanted to see the lens flare clear without the overlay, I could toggle that off as well. I'm going to head here over to the grunge-based category, where you can see also various lenses organized here, and settle on the EV crash in this case. First of all, I want to draw your attention over here to the right-hand side. What makes this designer so powerful is the fact that you have individual elements that you can control. So if I click on this one and actually turn it off and on, you'll notice that its controls show up here on the right-hand side, and we're able to make changes to it. So I can bring up its exposure, adjust its size, and only that one element is being adjusted from the lens flares. The controls inside of Davinci Resolve control the entire look, but if we liked most of the lens flares, but maybe not one component, we can just easily toggle that off. So each of these components are available for you to toggle on, off and on, and we can of course remove them from the scene altogether. In addition, if we like one of the elements and its presets, we can duplicate it down here in the lens element area and then make changes to such of its rotation in order to perfect the look of the lens flare. The other area to look at down here is actually the real world lens that it's currently simulating. So I can see here that it's a Leica 35, and I have access to every single component of this lens. So let's say I was trying to take a look at the back of the lens. I just want you to show the element here is controllable, and I can make changes to mimic the lens that I shot for my current film or production. Really fine-tune those looks to have them integrated into your scene. Okay, I like this lens flare, and what I'm going to do here is show that if we make more changes to it, maybe I'll come in here, add a little bit more color to one of the elements, and come to another one here and grab this color wheel just to change up the components of this a little bit, not to mention the exposure of the item. At any point in time, we can take this and save this as a preset for future use. So rather than if we know that we're going to use it again in another project, this is a great way of making sure, if I click on new here, I can save this save new flare, which I'll call NAB, day 3. And save it to the custom folder. Now if I press save, I do want to show up here at the bottom, there's a custom category, and here are all of my custom lens flare presets which are accessible to me in the designer. Now at any point in time I can right click one of these, and if someone else has real lens flares in After Effects or Davinci Resolve on their system, I can share this file with them. So if I go here to show in Finder, it's a very lightweight RGX file that you can copy and put in the exact same place on the other person's system so that they have it for their workflow and can change it in the designer themselves. So now that we've saved that preset, one other thing to mention here with all of the lens flares is that some of these actually are just individual elements that you can take advantage of. So they're not fully constructed flares, but maybe 1 or 2 parts of a flare. We also have core projections, which you could just add to the scene, such as schmutz, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, but adds dirt and griminess to your lens, and we can play around with its actual texture. The best part is, if we're unhappy with the changes we made, we can use a simple undo Command-Z command or Control-Z on a PC in order to revert back to our previous selection. I'm going to press confirm so that we can see this inside of Resolve, and just press the space bar to play it back, keeping in mind that I'm getting a bit better performance on my laptop based on its mode, but that all of those controls for the overall lens flare you have access to here. And more importantly, if you decided that you wanted to animate one of these, you have all the keyframes accessible to you here for the overall lens flares, and don't necessarily have to go back to the designer unless you wanted to tweak the individual components that were there. Okay, so I've added this lens flare to the scene, but wanted to show a slightly different workflow here with this. So for a second, I'm just going to trash the lens flare that I have, and I'm going to create what's called a fusion clip, which will allow me to work in the VFX section of Davinci Resolve. So if I right click here and choose new fusion clip, it basically places that clip in a container, and I can now work with it directly within the Fusion page. In the Fusion page, we have access to all of those open effects that we did in the edit page, and it doesn't really matter, whatever we prefer to work in, we can work in the edit page, the color page, or the Fusion page. However, there's a few special items in here to keep in mind. One, I'm just going to select my little node line here, and bring up the shortcut toolbar, where I'll type in Real and select the previous effect that I added. I'll position it in the scene, hop quickly into the designer, and because I spent my time saving that custom preset and now have changed to work in the Fusion page, it's accessible for me here. Now the cool thing is, we can add other elements to interact with our lens flare. So this is what I'd like to do. We come here, select this area, and then just press or type in text to add the text plus tool to my tree. And you can see here what it does is it adds some text and it merges that text into the scene. Now I just want to see the text by itself, so I'm looking at it here in the viewer, and in order to see some text I've got to enter it here on the screen. So I'm going to type in planet, because that is what we are looking at. I'm going to increase the size of that, and we can see that this text, of course, ships with an alpha channel, right, to make the entire background. to not see the background. And if we take a look at our real lens flare, we can have our text show up here in the scene. So in fact, I'm going to do a little change here so we can see the text. Oopsies. Okay. Try it again. Add the text, the proper text. And like I did before, select the text and enter it here on screen. And making sure that we see how these are all brought together. So here's my text. And the cool part about this is this text, I can actually have it interact with my lens flare based on the order that it's in. So what I'm going to do is actually use the text to be what's known as an obscuration map in order to hide it behind the planet here. So I'll drag this to the green triangle so we can take a look. And under this, I'm going to come over here to alpha and just show you as this lens flare moves behind the text, we can see that it disappears in specific areas. And we can use that as an influence on our lens flare for specific interactivity here directly in our project, which can make for some really cool workflows. Now I want to take this and also show how we can do this with a clip and the luminance levels that are within a shot. I'm going to head over back into my edit page. I have another project here available for me. And what I'm going to do, we can see a few things going on in this project. One is that our subject walks in front of the sun flare right now. Also that there's a couple little motion within our shot as well. So what I'm going to do is right-click this and choose to create a new Fusion clip. I'll head into the Fusion page like I did before. And let's add a similar workflow here. So first off, we'll add our flare. We'll position that flare in the scene, and I'll choose a preset. So my sun is appropriate in this case. And of course, I can make any changes to those flare properties as required. Now there are two issues. One is that my shot is moving. The other is that my flare is in front of my subjects, which I don't want it to be. One thing we can do to hide this flare behind the subjects is something that we just did that's very similar, which is to add basically a luminance obscuration map. So looking at the luminance levels of the clip, we hide the flare behind the darkest parts of the image. One way to do that is to add a brightness filter onto our clip, a brightness and contrast filter. I'll apply it and basically pipe our media one into the brightness filter. Here, bring down the saturation and make this a lot darker, identifying strong black and white areas. So I'm using this effect as a map and taking it and piping it in to the real lens flare's obscuration port. So what we should see when our subject comes in front of the lens flare, it's actually doing the opposite in this case, but if we invert it, we can now see that it's interacting with our subject. So as she becomes more in front, the lens flare itself is hidden from the scene. And also notice as I move from it frame by frame, the lens flare doesn't just pop off and on, it gets smaller and larger because it's now behind the subject. So now that we've gotten that taken care of, we'll now basically make sure that our lens flare is moving with our shot. In order to do that, I'm going to add a tracker in Resolve, a very smart tracker that works very fast in the Fusion page. And I'll take my Media 1 in to pipe it into the tracker. And what I'm going to do is actually track an area that is not being hidden from our subject. So I'll grab the IntelliTrack, move it down here to the right-hand side, and paying attention to this track, I have controls here at the top where what I can do is on this high contrast point, track forward and backward. You can already see the tracker working extremely fast across the clip, and I've successfully tracked an area on the horizon. The biggest problem is that area isn't located where the sun is. All trackers contain an offset value, and I can drag this offset value and put it in place for where I want the flare. Now, all I need to do is if I go to the real lens flare, toggle that back on. The lens flare has a position property, and if I connect it to that tracker offset position, it's now moving, although slowly here in the preview. It's behind the subject and integrated into our scene. And that IntelliTracker is pretty fast on this 4K clip, right? So we're able to see that and just let it play back a little bit more. I'll scrub it here instead so we can see that lens flare slowly disappear behind the subject. And we can affect that luminance map more just to make it a bit perfect for the actual obscuration overall. All right, so there's that example. I just wanted to hop back over into my edit page and show something that I think is really special about this specific lens flare. And this is the fact that it can interact with the colors of your footage behind it and actually animate. One of the best ways to show this is to drag the lens flare here on your scene. Now we're just going to choose, in this case, not a preset, but a component of the lens flare. And I'm going to start off with something called Basic Schmutz, which adds, as you can see, based on some light, some bokeh within your scene. This grunge, this dirt that's on our lens, can be changed in terms of the preset that we selected. So in fact, if I select that block and start to go through these various textures, you'll see various sizes here available for you to place into your scene. In addition to this, we can take any of these textures and mirror them on a specific axis, depending on how our clip is. And if I actually toggle off the existing light that's in the scene, so I'm going to turn off light source animation, nothing shows up temporarily. There's an option here called background illumination. We toggle that on, it's taking a look at the light and color in the scene and now interacting with it. Now to make this a little bit more clear, I'm going to boost the exposure, and notice how those bokeh are different colors now because it's taking that consideration there in the background. Let's make this a bit more stylistic, where I'm going to take the f-stop, drag it up quite a bit to get really fine, small bokeh within the scene, with maybe some less blades even, so we can really design this. And show, if I confirm this and bring this back in, pay attention to how now this grunge, this dirt, is actually blinking and moving, right? Because of all of those colors within the shot. And this then combined with the lens flare can really integrate within your scene. Pretty cool? Yeah, awesome. So a great thing to check out, that illumination that's available and for your whole entire lens flare. All right, I wanted to also show that with the abundance of AI tools coming in, which are assistants inside of Davinci Resolve, we can use those tools as well. So in this specific shot that I have here in my scene, what I'd like to do is a little bit of adding a lens flare here to the sun, In fact, I'm going to trim this down a little bit so we don't track the whole clip. And also, a little bit further down the line here, we can see that the subject goes in front of the light source. Maybe what we want to do is have that subject not be affected by it as much and more control over the lens flare that we add. So going through one similar tracking-based workflow, I'm going to create a Fusion clip, hop into the Fusion page, and like we did before, add real lens flare. It's now connected to our pipe. I'll add it to the sun, and here in the designer, let's actually just choose a different preset. I'll actually just type in warm, because it tells me the attributes that are available about the various presets. And I like this one with the dirt here in the foreground, and I'll just position it right by the light source. So one thing I wanted to mention, recently in Resolve 20 beta, the magic mask has now been improved. So we can use that magic mask to easily isolate the subject within our scene and then have him in the foreground. So let me just press the space bar and actually type in magic. Here's the magic mask. I'll add it to the scene. And what I want to do is take the media one and use the magnetic mask to isolate the subject. And it's so simple to do this. I'm just going to click and drag. And look what it just did. I just did a little squiggly line and it selected my subject here. Now, I have these tracking values down here. I just did one stroke, and while I can do a couple more to refine this, you have more options in the color page that you can take advantage of. Now with this specific example, there's already some light in the scene, so we're going to want to put some back in. But with that magic mask, I can use this data, this mask data, and place it inside the real lens flare so it's not affected the subject when he goes in front of the frame. So not too bad over this fairly long clip. Magic Mask is doing a great job. Needs a little bit of refinement there at the end with that last flip. Well, we got a pretty good end result here. All right, that track is done. Can make any refinements that we want. But let's say we were happy with this particular mask. I can come in here and now feed this as a mask for real lens flare. And I'll do just that. It's going to wait for it to finish processing. You're almost there, buddy. Almost the end of the day. It's just as tired as everyone else from the show floor, trying to make the best of the situation. All right. Good news is, if I hop back into my edit page, I've already done a scene with another lens flare, and you might be able to tell the different color of the subject that I did the magic mask with. But most importantly is that when he comes close to the sun, it's hidden from the actual view, right? It's not being affected by the lens flare, and I could put some of that back in. Last but not least, for any ACES color workflow, you can use the color page and have the right color with your lens flare directly within Davinci Resolve. Now, for those of you who were here at the beginning of the tutorial, I did want to make a mention. If I hop inside of this tool again and go over into Fusion, into Real Lens Flares, where we can see the lens flare effects, and the designer, I actually saved a preset. And this preset, because it's on my system and also available in After Effects, I can access. And I can send it to someone else if they want to continue to work. So that preset is inside of Real Lens Flare. And I'm going to just shut down Resolve and head into After Effects so we can see it, the custom preset. So I have a new shot where I want to apply that preset. And just like inside of Resolve, I'll head to the effects and preset area, applying real lens flares to the scene. Here we go. Apply it to the shot. Now we have that on the clip. I open the designer, head over to custom where all those presets are, and from the My Send preset, I actually saved the NAB day 3 earlier, I can position this accordingly in the scene and then use all of the tracking tools that are available to me in After Effects. Now think about this cross-platform. You're working on Resolve on your system, you have someone in After Effects on theirs, you just simply head to the Documents folder and share them this lightweight real lens flare file for them to continue to do their rotoscoping or work that's involved. Now that we're inside of After Effects, there's one more thing that I'd like to show you guys, which is something brand new to Maxon Studio. So Maxon Studio was launched quite a little bit while back last year, and it includes a bunch of text templates, backgrounds that make motion graphic work super simple. Since this new release, there's now 100 templates that have been added to Maxon Studio. And one other thing is you should note that all Red Giant effects are now spread across just simple Red Giant categories that you can take advantage of in the effects and presets page. In fact, if I look down here, we see all of those Red Giant categories available to us in one place. Now what I'm going to do is actually just shut down the preset section here, and I have a brand new composition that is in a 9:16 aspect ratio. So first off, I just want to show you Maxon Studio. I'll head over here to Maxon Studio. It's going to load up, and I'm going to make this full frame. So there, we can see it. I'll just press the tilde key, and this is all the content that's available. And in fact, as I hover over with my mouse, I can see the backgrounds, and not to mention at the top, specific categories like text that's available for me here too. And with the click of a download and a plus icon, it will immediately go into your composition of choice. Now, one thing that we can do is if we go back to all capsules, is do a few filter searches here. So I'm going to click on this and ask to see newest first, which will just reveal to me anything that is now involved with this release. And I'm also going to click over here because we have two different types of orientation that's available to us. If I click on vertical, now we see all of these 9:16 options that we can drop inside our composition of choice. So I'll just hover over a few of these. Some are meant for logo reveals, easily to add to the end of your social media video for subscriptions. And here I kind of like this ad, and I'm going to make some adjustments to it. So I've already downloaded this template, but if I click on the plus icon, that is now applied to my composition that was open in the background. I'll just play this back so you can see this. Got the space bar, we've got all of those text elements, but one thing you'll notice in your composition is it's just a pre-comp. Your inclination might be go inside the pre-comp, but the studio panel also contains a section which makes it very easy to adjust the parameters and elements of this template. So we can see here at the top, we can play around with the scale of our placeholder, but most importantly, we have this little Dropbox icon, Dropbox, which we can drop a piece or a clip from our existing project or navigate on our system. And in fact, if I click here, I've got a few different clips available to me. And I like this generic tree one. I've brought it inside the template, and I can scale it down and position it accordingly in that 9:16 aspect ratio. In addition to this, we've got all of these other sections that you can adjust. So let's change the starting color in this case to orange, to blue. And now we see the starting color of that gradient be affected. And I'll change the end color in this case to teal, to orange. I just said the same thing, teal and orange. End of day. So easy to make those adjustments, not to mention for all of the text elements, all within one place. And if you're wanting to use multiple versions of this actual Studio template, you've got a ton of options here from a simple right click. So that is to duplicate an instance. You can place that later on in your composition, change the timing, and customize it. Later this year, you'll be able to create and save your own templates within this capsule-based system. So making it more available for you for the 9x16 and 16x9 projects. Last but not least, one of my favorites here is just how easy some of these templates are to put your own logos and graphics, all pre-animated for you to simplify your workflow for those short social media cases. So just as a recap, we started to look inside of Davinci Resolve, where we saw real lens flares and your ability there to work with these ray trace simulations inside of the Fusion page, the Edit page, and the Color page, taking advantage of all of the tracking as well as other effects inside of a Resolve workflow. We saw how those real lens flares, especially schmutz, interacts with your scene if you ask it to identify the background, as well as how we could add an obscuration map to have the lens flare behind the subject as well as track to the scene. We then sent that preset over and basically took advantage of it inside of After Effects. And last but not least, saw just a little taste of what's available inside of Maxon Studio and all of the templates available. Now, just here, it is a full exploration of stuff that's available, not just 9x16. All these lovely templates you can have within this discovery category. And always heading back to the top, we can get rid of these filters to see these elements and how they might be useful for our own workflow. Well, that's all I had to cover in terms of what's new in Red Giant. Did you guys enjoy the presentation? Awesome. I'm Nick Harauz. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the rest of the show.